We are the shining red jewel of the Mediterranean, a beacon of socialist prosperity. Despite challenges posed by the mafia, we have managed to maintain a peaceful society. However, storm clouds are gathering on the horizon. The Soviets, leader of Europe, and the Warsaw Pact are stagnating. Their economy is rampantly corrupt. But we will remain steadfast and committed to improving our nation. Week after week passed by. Only thing that happened was a little something in the USA and a fortunately stable change of leadership in the USSR. However, in April, Tunisia separated from their union with Libya. This somehow led to a complete collapse of Gaddafi's regime, plunging Libya into a civil war. The immediate consequences of this was refugees turning up to our shores. Initially, it was only a small number, but it rapidly escalated to thousands. This has turned into a full-blown refugee crisis. The president will address the nation. He has determined that to survive this crisis, we need to appease the Catholics and get their support. The president condemned our own human rights violations. No longer will we infringe on the people's right to freely speak and congregate. We will turn back to our Christian origins. The communist hardliners have already started opposing our plan, but we will silence them through this mission. And we will overthrow the Congress who have been staunch opponent of our president's reforms. General Vincenzo Camporini entered the building with an entourage of soldiers and secret police, but he got too power hungry and launched a coup and arrested every single high-level Communist Party member, including our president. That escalated quickly. We are now ruled by the military. But not for long. The old president's reforms have shown the people the flaws of communism, and they are now turning to the only thing else they know, fascism. Almost 100 years ago, Il Duce marched on Rome, and we have done the same. Fascism is back in fashion, but we only control Rome. Both the northern Bolsheviks and the southern farmers are opposing us. We will crush these oppositions, making the streets in the north run as red as their banners, and driving in with the army to crush the southern strikes. Still, our grip over the country is weak. We consolidated power and centralized the nation around Rome. With our power over the nation temporarily stable, it is time for our leader to decide the future of Italy. Will we aim to restore Mussolini's social republic, or perhaps even the Roman Empire? After a week of debates, we have agreed to strive to restore the Roman Empire. The Socialist Republic was only a puppet regime to Hitler. We want to create a real Roman nation. So the long path of restoration has begun. We started by abolishing the Congress, completely getting rid of all Bolshevik influence. Instead, we replaced it with the National Reorganization Council that shall help us restore order throughout Italy. The military regime before us didn't manage to arrest the old president, but we will. By forcing him to admit all the horrifying acts he has ordered, the population will no longer support him. Our regime is now totally stable and we can re-establish the Roman Senate. This time it shall never fall. We can now begin to transform Italy into a true Roman nation. No longer will we be Italians. From this day we will be Romans. But only creating a strong Roman identity isn't enough. We have to revive the Roman culture too. Classical architecture will be restored and Rome will be rebuilt. The Colosseum will be the center of Roman sports again, and the Forum Romanum will anew be the meeting place of our citizens. Finally, our Roman culture is back from the dead. Consumerism has gone down even more from its low levels during the Bolshevik times, allowing us to build a bigger industry than our neighbors. And with all this industry, we can upgrade our military and reform the legions. It has to be the best military in the world, because as I hope you know, the Roman Empire didn't look like this. We have already created a great infantry division, all we need is more of them, so we will also upgrade our conscription laws. Finally, our culture is back, but one thing is missing, our language. The rebirth of Latin will unify Europe under a single one. With our army upgraded, we can begin our conquest. We will begin with North Africa. The Libyan civil war is over, but the refugee crisis is still going on. If we liberate the region and give them no reason to flee, they will stay. And Libya will grant us all the oil we will need in the future. So we declared a war of liberation. We launched 2 naval invasions, one to Tripoli and the other to Benghazi. Both managed to land even though it was more difficult than we thought it would be. After sending in reinforcements, we started marching inland and along the coast. In Benghazi, we pushed all the way to Tobruk even though our supply was terrible. We managed simply because our legions were far better than the Libyan army. And in Tripoli we expanded in all directions, capturing city after city. We even managed to encircle and destroy some of their divisions. But we are now reaching the desert. The Libyans' army's home. We won't be able to fight them straight on, so we will use our motorized to cut their divisions off the main front. It was most effective in the east. There we managed to encircle first 1, then 2, then 3 divisions. This was all their divisions on the front. But it was also successful in the west, where we encircled a few and linked up with our eastern forces. We can now march into the desert and capture their last cities. After many weeks of only sand, they finally surrendered. We annexed everything. Now it will take time for the population to like our presence, but investment into military police will silence them. But we won't slow down our conquest of North Africa. Tunisia is next. Instead of only attacking from our land border, we naval invaded their capital, something that they didn't expect. After advancing a bit from both the south and the north, they realized they couldn't win and surrendered. Next up, Algeria. And we totally overestimated them. After breaking through, they couldn't stop us. We encircled and captured Algiers and they quickly capitulated. There are now only 2 nations left, Egypt and Morocco. We will attack them now, but we have to hurry. We have underestimated the resistance we would meet and our garrisons are in dire need of reinforcements. First, we will attack Morocco. At first it went slow, we had a hard time because of a river and the Moroccan mountains. Once we broke through we managed to rush all the way to Tangier, but after that we got stopped. We will have to take a pause to restore our strength. With supply from Tangier arriving we can continue our offensive. After a long battle we broke through and captured Meknes, allowing us to capture Rabat and encircle one of their divisions. From Rabat we successfully captured Casablanca. With the city seized, the Moroccans are really close to surrendering. We only have to truck to Marrakech. On the way we also encircled and captured the smaller city of Safi. They surrendered and we annexed everything. Next, Egypt. But while we had fought in Morocco, the Soviet Warsaw Pact split in 2. All the neo-communists in the West broke away from the conservative Soviets and formed the European Socialist Union. They will be a problem for the future, but the present war is in Egypt. We launched a naval invasion to surprise them and it worked. They had almost no defenders and we could capture 60% of their population without any problem. We captured the eastern side of the Suez Canal but had problems to cross it. So we sent reinforcements and blasted our way across the canal to the unfortune of any passing trade ships. With the Sinai captured, we only have to march southwards along the Nile. We secured city after city and with Luxor captured, the Egyptians surrendered. We annexed Egypt and liberated Sudan. All of Africa is now secured. And the problem we had with our garrisons is resolved too. While all this had been going on, a power struggle occurred in Rome. The senators were in a heated debate over who should be appointed as the next Roman dictator. Some argued that no one should hold the position, but they were quickly outvoted by the majority. After many battles and squabbles, the populists came out on top and assigned Virginia Raggi as leader. The legacy of Augustus has been restored. We will now continue our reconquest, but our reputation as conquerors have begun spreading. This has led to the Turks taking up shields together with other Middle Eastern nations. Even the Kurds joined the Turkish Defense Pact. With the Turks being our strongest enemy yet and now having multiple allies, we must strengthen our army before launching our attack. We trained 2 new infantry armies and doubled our amount of motorized divisions. The war can now begin. Our only border with the Middle Eastern Defense Pact is in Palestine, and it is heavily fortified. An offensive would fail immediately. So we will use our knowledge of naval invasions and our superior navy to naval invade our enemies. From Tobruk we launched an invasion to Cyprus. We thought it would be easy, but they were prepared and repelled our attacks. If we want to succeed, we have to surprise our enemies more. So we will naval invade Adana. Their garrisons will be weak because since the war began they have been bashing their heads against Sinai. So once we arrived, we cut through their thin defenses and managed to establish a beachhead. But sending reinforcements to push further will be suicidal since we would run out of supply. So instead we will naval invade the Turks again on another area, more specifically Antalya. After a hard battle we triumphed and captured the port. At this location we managed to expand and even encircle one of their divisions, but we ultimately got stopped. So third time's the charm, Izmir. We easily landed since most Turkish divisions were elsewhere. This meant we could expand and eventually link up with the divisions in Antalya. We regrouped and began our offensive towards Istanbul. It went slow since the Turkish had a terrain advantage of mountains, but we encircled some of their divisions. But it went far too slow, partially because of Turkish air support. So we decided to take a detour to one of their airports. This offensive was so successful that we continued and managed to link up with our forces in Adana. This hit 2 birds in 1 stone since we also encircled a huge amount of divisions. We could now continue towards Istanbul. And this time it went quick. After encircling some divisions, we rushed towards the Istanbul Straits and managed to cross it in only a short battle. The Turks are now on their knees. We only had to capture Ankara and then they surrendered. But we still have to defeat the Palestinians. With the capitulation of Turkey, both the Kurds and the Syrians have been forced to relocate their troops from the Palestinian border to defend their homeland. This means we can blow our way through Palestine and liberate the Holy Land. With it captured, the Middle Eastern Defense Pact surrendered and we annexed everything. There is now only one non-communist nation left to invade, the Kingdom of Spain. They have somewhat the same army as Turkey but without allies, so this should be no problem. We've defeated the Spanish and annexed almost everything. They managed to flee and exile themselves in Equatorial Guinea. We can now attack the last country that isn't in a faction, Yugoslavia. But there is a huge risk of them joining the French and Germans, so we will fortify our border with them too. Then we declared war. The Yugoslavians have heavily fortified their small border with us, so instead we planned our biggest naval invasion yet. A whole infantry army crossed the Adriatic Sea and captured Zadar and Split. The Yugoslavs immediately joined the European Socialist Union for help. But we won't be stopped by this. We rushed towards the Hungarian border to cut off Yugoslavia before German reinforcements arrived. 50 kilometers away we got stopped and the reinforcements flooded into lower Yugoslavia. Due to supply we have been forced to retreat back and take a defensive position, but we will continue on another front. The French had taken over Portugal, but it will now change hands. They didn't have a ton of divisions in the area, so we easily broke through and liberated Lisbon. While we did this, the French and Germans have tried multiple times to attack us, but our defenses are too good. So we will counterattack them in Savoy. Their divisions were so tired we successfully broke through and encircled Nice and Monaco. We have shown that the French are beatable. With strength and confidence we continued our offensive. We arrived in Marseille and encircled Toulon. Then we changed direction and continued north. We tried to encircle all of the French Alps in one go, but after it failed we took a more realistic approach and slowly encircled them one after one. This was successful. But the French have now taken a more defensive stance along the Rhone, so we will use our navy again. We have complete superiority in the Mediterranean Sea, but also in the Bay of Biscay. So we landed with our army in almost every beach bordering the bay. After landing, we even managed to capture Bordeaux. Since this was a complete surprise for the European Socialist Union, the only reinforcements they could send were unorganized, and once our motorized divisions arrived, we drove all the way to Paris. The French have now only two big cities left, Lyon and Toulouse. After our naval invasions, the French have been in complete disarray, so we could break through their defenses in the Pyrenees Mountains. Not in the actual mountains, but around them. Our two pincers met in Toulouse and encircled a ton of French defenders. To capture Lyon, we couldn't attack from the east, and instead we relocated our motorized from Paris to Bordeaux and attacked from there. We breached their defenses and after a short drive arrived outside Lyon. Before we could enter the city, we first had to link up with our eastern forces and encircle a ton of Frenchmen. But this mattered little because once we captured Lyon, they all surrendered. We quickly cleared up any remaining Germans and then turned to our border with them in the north. Once we defeated them, we will have restored Rome. Our army on the border is huge. 120 divisions are ready for an offensive. And an offensive they will get. The goal was to first liberate all of France and the Benelux. We captured northern France and then continued into Belgium. Brussels, Luxembourg and lastly Amsterdam fell. Time for stage 2 of our offensive, Germany. Victory, we have annexed everything. But wait, we still lack a few Roman provinces. We have completely forgot about Switzerland. Alright, that wasn't difficult. With our supremacy over Europe established, the Soviets are more scared of us than ever. So we sent an ultimatum to their allies Albania and Bulgaria to surrender or else be destroyed like the Swiss. The Soviets didn't dare to intervene and we have now all of the Mediterranean Sea. Rome has been restored and even extended in northern Germany. We did this all ourselves while being surrounded by communist nations. Thanks so much for watching and see you in the next video.